Alright, hey guys. This is your LT9 video for the linear relationships unit. Um, and we've gone over how to find the slope between 2 points, which is this complicated looking formula. And what I said in class was that I don't really want you to worry so much about that formula as much as I want you to understand this piece of it, the change in y over the change in x. So as we do LT9, the questions are going to ask you for a slope and a y-intercept so that you can write the equation. And to find the slope, I want you to really focus on this change in y over change in x, and then we'll talk about some different ways to find the y-intercept. Okay? The slope part should be a little easier. The y-intercept is usually a little more difficult. So the slope between, say, these 2 points, 1, 3, and -2, 5, we're really looking at the change in y, which would be these coordinates, over the change in x, which would be those coordinates. Okay? And from 3 to 5, we can see that the change in y is +2. And from 1 to -2, we can see that the change in x is -3 or down 3, which means that the slope for this between these 2 points is 2 over 3, and toss a negative on the front. Okay, so the slope is -2/3. Now this has to find b or the y-intercept. Plug in one of your original points. I want to show you a different way of doing that first. So I'm going to make a table. And I'm going to put these in order here. So this is actually going to go -2, 5, and then 1, 3. And if we want the y-intercept, what we're really saying is we want x equal to 0. And we want to know basically what goes over here when x is 0. Okay? So you can use this table to kind of help you. Because you know that the slope is -2/3, which means every time x goes up by 3, y is going to go down by 2. Or every time x goes down by 3, y is going to go up by 2. And so we can use that then to help us figure out what this 0 must be. Okay, so I'm going to include -1, 0, and 1. This also means that anytime x goes up by 1, y is going to go down by 2/3. So from here to here, x goes up by 1, so y is going to have to go down by 2/3, which means we're doing 5 minus 2/3, which would be 4 and 1/3. And then we do that one more time to get to 0. So 4 1/3 minus 2/3 would be 3 and 2/3. Okay, so our b here is 3 and 2/3. Okay, that's how you can use a table. We'll look at some special cases here. This first special case, we've got the points 2, 7, and 0, 1. Here's our y coordinates. Here's our x coordinates. The change in y here is -6. The change in x is -2, which means that -6 over -2 is the slope, which is just equal to 3, +3. -5 and negative is positive. So we have a slope of 3. And if you look at this, 0, 1, we're actually already given the y-intercept. So you don't need to do any work in order to figure it out, because you're already given it. So we know the slope, and we know the y-intercept, and so our equation is done. All right. In this second one here, the kind of weird thing about this one that you may have noticed already is that there's actually no change for x. There's a change in y here, which is positive 4. But there's no change in x. This would be like a 0. Plus 0 minus 0 doesn't matter. Which would make our slope 4 over 0. But you can't divide by 0. You guys know that. You can't divide by 0. So anything divided by 0 is undefined. And we know that an undefined slope looks like this. So this is going to be one of these types of lines, which is an x equals line. And if you're not sure, look right there. The x coordinate is 3 in both of these cases. So our equation is x equals 3. Okay? This last one is a special case in a similar sort of way, except the opposite. So our change in y is actually 0, and our change in x is positive 5. So that would give us 0 over 5. 0 divided by anything is 0. So this has a slope of 0, which means the line looks like this. And we know that any line that looks like this is a y equals. And if you're wondering what does y equal, y equals 10, right there and right there. So our equation is y equals 10. Okay? I'm going to go ahead and do the before class with you because I want to show you a couple other ways to find the y-intercept. I think we can find the slope just fine. I'm not too worried about that. So let's go ahead and do that. So our change in y is from 6 to 4, so that's a negative 2. And then our change in x is from 2 to negative 2, which is negative 4. Meaning that the slope is negative 2 over negative 4, which is just 2 over 4, which is 1/2. Okay? Now I'm going to give you a couple different strategies in addition to the table that you can use. One way that you can find b is by setting up the y equals mx plus b equation, but then replacing m with 1/2, because we already know the slope is 1/2. Okay? Then we go ahead and replace y with one of the y coordinates. So I'll choose 6. And we replace x with that x coordinate, which was 2. Okay, so what I did is I took 2 and plugged it in for y, and I took, or for x, I'm sorry, and I took 6 and I plugged it in for y into that equation. Okay, then you're going to go ahead and solve this for b. So what this really gets you is 6 equals, well, half of 2 is 1 plus b. And now you're just solving an equation. You get b equals 5. Okay? So that means that our equation is y equals 1/2 x plus 5. Okay? Another way to look at this is you can think by using some proportional reasoning here. So if I have the point 2, comma 6, and I set up a proportion here, and I want 0, comma something, then all I have to do is think about what this means. What I've set up is x over y, right? And what this slope tells me right here is that if I increase my slope, or if I increase my x by 2, change in x is 2, change in y is 1. If I increase my x by 2, then I increase my y by 1. Okay? So if I want to get from an x value of 2 to an x value of 0, what I'm really doing here is subtracting 2. Okay? And if I had a corresponding y value of 6, and I want to know what this is, I've changed my x going down by 2, so that means I have to change my y by going down 1. Okay? So there's this relationship between x and y, that whenever x goes up by 2, y goes up by 1. And similar to that, if x goes down by 2, like it did right here, then y has to go down by 1, which gives me 5. And that's the exact same thing as what you saw in this other one. Okay. I'll show you the table just one more time, just in case you like that and want to see another example. So here's my xy table, -2, 4, and leave some space, and make 2, 6. The spot I'm looking for here is when x equals 0. I want to know why. And I've determined that my slope is 1 over 2. Okay? So if I am increasing x by 2, then I've increased y by 1. Okay? And so if I go from -2 to 0, then I have to go from 4 to 5. Okay? You can also think of this 0 being halfway between -2 and 2, and so then you just have to pick the number that's halfway between 4 and 6. Okay? So pick a method that works for you. Pick the one that you think you understand the best. I would say that probably the table is kind of most intuitive, kind of makes most sense in your brain, the way that you've learned math so far. The equation method and plugging in points to the equation probably seems the most complicated, but it'll work every single time. And then thinking of it proportionally with kind of setting up some different proportions is a little bit more intuitive, like the table. But if you don't like that one, then don't use that method. Okay? But basically pick one that works for you and stick with it.